I'm Nicholas in Melbourne, Australia, and I own Refinery Pilates and Wellbeing and TMR Academy, which is my teacher training program.
Very cool. So what's the first name before? I missed that one. Pilates and Wellbeing?
The Movement Refinery Pilates and Wellbeing is its full name, but it's epically long, so it becomes TMR and this and that, and but
Yes.
well-being's a big part of it, just indirectly because of how the Pilates method and treating people the right way affects their well-being.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. There's so much in the name. There's like the vision of what they do is in their name. So yeah, there's no compromising that. You can't just drop one word and then it just it loses the essence of what it is, right?
No, the name came about in 2004, um,
Hmm.
and there were all sorts of other names, which were there was the Pilates Junction, it was Pilates Atomic, there were like several about kind of refining and moving forward that I was looking to use. And
Hmm.
at the time, I was really into gyrotonic and gyrokinesis, as well as
Yes.
Pilates and running and cycling. And I was an ex-dancer, so I didn't want to just have Pilates as the idea of this cycle of moving. And that's where the
Yes.
Movement Refinery came from in
Nice.
2004. Yeah,
2004. Nice.
yeah. And it's meant lots of different things along the way. And it's had a few different logos and concentrations, but here we go, TMR
Hmm.
and well-being.
Yes. That's like I've had like, even for myself too, my business card says movement specialist.
Hmm.
Like, I started as a personal trainer, strength conditioning coach, Pilates coach. My background's in counseling. So like you could put therapist or counselor, but then all these things get captured in the word movement, whether it's emotional or physical.
Mm.
I'm helping people find movement, get unstuck, all those different things. So there's a way of just
Yeah,
capturing everything in a word, right?
absolutely. And of course, it's also, people bring their own journeys and subjective choices as well. So you say Pilates, well, horses for courses, or you say exercise or mentorship, and it's always different.
Yes.
So it's nice to have, just need to sort my phone out, sorry.
Yeah, that's all good then.
There we go. Yeah, it's nice to have a business card that doesn't have your 25 specialties and history on it and
Right.
just says, "Hi, I'm Martin.
Yes, yeah. And the
I can
big
help."
dogs, yeah, that's exactly, I was just gonna get to, I can help, right? Like I've seen guys who I know have just the most extensive resumes, have changed lives, have changed, have like coached national teams on those things, and then they get up and they're like, my name's Peter, and I've been a lot of places and I've done a lot of things.
Yeah, I
Full
love those
stop. And you're
people.
like, yes, so humble, right? And I'm just here for you. What do you need, right? Like, love it.
Can I just quickly say hi to Jen in LA? I very briefly got to meet
Absolutely,
Jen
yes.
at a conference in Australia, and she got to come to my studio hours after I received an archival reformer and got to play on it. And we're Facebook friends, as my mum would say. Oh, no, we're friends on Facebook, as my mum would say. And it's lovely to see that name pop up. But going back
Yes.
to the idea of like your business card, and
Yes.
it's that I can help. Generally, that's the reason why people get into the work we do or the work around the work we do.
Hmm.
And I always have like I'm proud of my accomplishments, but they're always very quiet. And I always have a bit of a moment when I see people's email signatures that have got all these qualifications
Like
because
50 letters.
it's,
Yes.
I mean, so amazing. But the key of it is that those qualifications don't really mean much unless they're turned around onto the client. So, so yeah, I'm
Yes.
Nicholas and I'm here to
Yeah,
help.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm not afraid of commitment.
Nice. There you go. Well, yeah, so there's two things I wanted to run with. One was, what do our clients need? We're here to help. And as we were talking in prep for this, you were saying, what do they need in this minute? And the words in this minute really just jumped off the page for me. Can you say a little bit more about what that means?
Well, in this minute, I definitely mean always, but I mean, you know, what's the date today? The 19th. It depends where you are, right? Well, it depends where you are. So
Yes.
February 20th, 2021, in this minute, what do you need? We we're probably all in different countries listening and watching this, and it's really hard at the moment being in one place and looking to friends on social media or on the phone or by email because we all live. It's probably the first time in my lifetime that we're all living dramatically different experiences where we're not the pilot, we're not in control, and
Yes.
our experiences, even if we're with the same level of education or socioeconomic or demographic background, we're all pushed into different areas. So looking at what's
Mm,
happening in this minute and what do I need now is so different from what I needed 18 months ago and what a client or a colleague is experiencing. So
yes.
whether you call it a cost to benefit analysis or whether you say do the high bridge, or can I do a sneaky pelvic lift, or do I need to do 6 Pilates workouts this week, or can I just have a shower? Like, as long as I'm brushing my teeth, what do I need? What are the things for health and well-being
Yes.
that I can live with? And then I'll deal with the other stuff down the track. So that's what I really meant by
Yes.
being okay with the things that you need, that you truly need now, and not whipping yourself because you put
Hmm.
on 10 kilos or half a kilo, or you have nil interest in the, you know, and lifestyles now are very different,
Yeah.
and it
Yes.
depends where you are
Hmm.
physically, where you live.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. We were talking about that yesterday. There's that notion of self-care, the notion of not making apologies for where you are right now as well, right? Like to say that I just need space or I just need to rest. It's not about ticking the box and having 15 workouts this week. I'm fine with just sleeping. That might be the training that I need this week just to actually rest,
Yeah.
still my mind and get some proper sleep, right? Like that sort of thing. So yeah, no, that falls into the whole
Mm.
category of self-care, right? Like as much as we want people to come into our buildings and spend money on sessions, we want them to have vitality to really be alive and not just be living, right?
Yeah, and not to be devoid of compassion either, because like watching people join is to COVID response has worked. Is there a response? Are there vaccinations happening? You know, what has the 2020 of it done to listening to our needs? Oh, there you go, Lucia. COVID has forced
Yes.
us to listen to our deepest
Yes.
needs. And in a time where we've previously
Right.
thrived on travel, well, I can't go see my dear friends in London.
Hmm.
I can't come and visit you. Um, in the walls of my house is 3 meters wide. What's that look
Hmm.
like? So it's
Right.
different. We even
Yeah.
you look at the Commonwealth countries, our COVID responses and the numbers and what that has meant. So yeah, if I can have a shower, brush my teeth, go to work, walk the dog several times, and watch Drag Race, I'm happy.
Yes. Exactly. Because that's what we need in this minute. Yes. So Nick, how did you find Pilates?
Like most other people, injured, frustrated dancer or athlete, right?
Okay. Yes. Yes.
It was, yeah, I was a middle of the road level talent dancer with great ideas about
Okay.
enjoying myself.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
had a tricky, I have and has, I had a tricky body as a teenager. I have just enough of a whisper of a scoliosis that it's problematic, but not enough to require, significant intervention. Um, my
Intervention.
kind of the family history of spines and pelvis is, wonky. So I, like many growing teenagers who danced or played sport, had, protracted periods of growing pains, as they were called in the 80s and 90s, and
Yes.
patellofemoral problems. And Australia is very much into physiotherapy or PT, and I
Yes.
found a dance specialist physio, and had some basic exercises. And this was in the mid 90s, and at that point there was one Pilates studio in Adelaide. And I grew up in South Australia, but I live in Victoria, different state. And through that,
Okay.
I had my first introduction to Pilates in 1998, and it wasn't for me. It was the practitioner I went to put me on the floor. So I was 16. She laid me down for an hour, and
Okay.
I didn't connect with it. Um, but then when I was doing
Didn't
my,
connect. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it was hard, as I'm a boy who's going through internal questions, and lying down on the floor to breathe is not what I imagined.
Right.
Having worked
Yeah.
with teenagers on the other side of the spectrum, I understand. Um,
Yes.
but then later on, when I went to kind of full-time dance training in Brisbane, um, I really found I clicked with a Pilates teacher and their method, and their
Okay.
reasoning, and it became to me it was really clear that it had an enormous effect on how I felt, pain, performance, and that it was my ticket to being comfortable. So
Ah.
I went to like a semi-private class 3 times a week, and that's how it started.
Yes. So it, like you said, like to find comfort, did you continue, like, did you make the connection to performance enhancement with Pilates at that time too, or you're really just like, I just want to feel better?
Look, when I started, I had typical um, typical overuse injuries in my shoulder from partnering in
Yeah.
ballet and contemporary dance. Um, and, we talk a lot about in our work, from the bottom up or having a stable core. Well, we also know that when you're fairly flimsy up top and you're trying to toss humans around, things are going to start to work down the chain of dysfunction. And so that was me. So
Yes.
there was a time where I couldn't lift up a cup. I just worn those tendons to buggery, and the pain reduction, and then that starting to have understanding and connection. My scapula can move in, the
Yes.
back, or so it gave me a lot. And as an 18-year-old, it was very powerful. And then the
Mm,
performance optimization could begin. So
yes.
it was it,
Yeah. Yeah. So just reading the comments there. Flimsy. Flimsy.
flimsy.
Love that word in the context of joints. Yes. It's funny.
Oh,
It's funny you say flimsy because I've been working with Jamie White over the last few weeks, and she called me out on my feet being flimsy. Like everything's strong and connected doing these hundreds, and your feet are just flopping around down there. Keep those connected as well. So you said that, I'm just like, yep, yeah,
yeah.
busted.
There
Yeah.
are as many problems come from being, on the opposite end of flimsy. So, um,
Hmm.
I think Pilates
Yeah.
helped me understand that there was a spectrum, that everything wasn't binary, and could have in what my body, how it worked.
Yes. Yeah. So then, okay, so that was your experience as a young teenager going to Pilates and recognizing that this method does not work for me. And then you reach out to someone else, you connect with them, and you're like, yes, this is what it's supposed to be like. And I wrote down those words, the method and the reasoning, and the things that made it make sense to you the second time around. Is that something that you connect with when you're talking with people and introducing Plies to them now, where like you're intentional with the method and you're intentional with we're doing this because of this and we're doing this because this, like do you make those connections as you're introducing people to it?
No, not always. Not always.
Yeah. Yeah.
I might be, I don't think I'm a legitimate perfectionist, but I'm definitely hard on myself and um, constructively critical of how I work with people. I don't know that I've ever gotten it right
Mm-hmm.
early on. Um, I try not to be, I've once or twice been like quite evangelical and it's never worked for me.
Okay.
I kind of sit
All
back
right.
and have an air of doing the bare minimum, but have, several process gates in my mind as to what I'm going to say for that person on that day in that hour. Um,
Yes.
I do my best to make sure that a new person leaves their first session with a few tangible concepts or tangible benefits.
Yes.
Um, it doesn't matter that I love a particular style of the method and I was trained by a particular lineage and I have this brand of equipment. That doesn't matter to them. They just, it matters to some people,
Sure.
absolutely. But most people, I
Mm-hmm.
talk about comfort and how Pilates can or body work can help you lift up your grandchildren or have confidence and not feel stuck and rickety in your mid 30s.
Yes.
Um, I'm
Yes.
very spoilt where I work, and Melbourne is, it's not the largest, Victoria is not the largest state in terms of land or population. We're about 6 million and we're one of the smallest land size states. But we have the most
Okay.
Pilates studios and the most people who go to Pilates in Australia. So I'm very spoiled that people
Really?
come to Nick. Yeah, we that people come to me specifically for movement potential and unlocking things, or they come to
Yes.
TMR because
Yes.
like it's around the corner, and to be frank, they have the ability to pay the entry tickets. So um,
Right.
I don't have to do a hard sell, and I don't like
Mm-hmm.
to. And
Right.
yeah, so one day when I get it right, first off, I'll ring you and tell you. But until
Okay,
that
please
point,
do.
I
Yeah.
think, yeah,
Right. But it's interesting because like we spend so much time on this show talking with people about things like how do you get men into Pilates? How do you explain? I was on a podcast for a business leadership thing the other day, and they're saying, explain to me what Pilates is. How would you define, like, you mean, so you get into these conversations where the culture doesn't understand what we're doing, and we're trying to give value to this. It's not yoga thing, whereas you're in a
I don't
context where
live
people
that.
understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Also,
yeah,
it's interesting to me. I mean, look, it still happens, and I live in this inner city hip bubble where there's what I would call
yes,
white reformer studios, like Reformer Fitness, heated reformer, hit. Like there are like 18 variants of one type of thing. There are six physios doing it.
yes,
Like there's a lot. Plus, there's like this rarefied beast called the Movement Refinery, which is classical adjacent with a long experience of movement training. We've got it's very different to what it was
yes,
20 years ago when I was explaining what is Pilates and I was going through, it's a system that does this and blah blah blah. And my auntie
yes,
would say, oh, was it like Bowen therapy? Well, no, it's not. Oh, is it like yoga? Well, you do have some similar benefits. So
right,
these
yes,
days I try to just focus on the outcomes
Yes.
and I am very clear on the flaws of the system or where we can optimize.
Hmm.
And I think I sell the space rather than the method first
Yes.
off. I really
Interesting.
don't want to indoctrinate someone, and I don't want to be a classical Pilates asshat, mainly
Hmm.
because I'm new to the kind of classical world, and I don't want to engage in that anymore.
Okay.
I just want people to feel good. And so
Absolutely.
my answer to the question that was asked to you is Pilates is a methodology of exercises that helps you feel great.
That's a great elevator pitch for Pilates. That was concise.
Come
You
give
practice
come
that.
give it a go. Yeah,
Yes.
if it's not
You must have
that
said
is.
that before, right? Like that's
Yeah.
like, yeah, work the work
Yeah, and
as
a di
there's
yeah, work the work. Well, yeah, I have a dear friend in Wellington, New Zealand, Sasha, who runs Hoy Studio, and we constantly talk about how we talk people out of doing Pilates because
oh
it's like,
yes.
yeah, oh, do you really want to do that? And do you want to commit? And blah blah blah. Um, and
Hmm.
I find a lot of instructors, as you were talking about culture, like a lot of instructors, we're really into ourselves and we take Pilates very seriously,
Yes.
and that's not always great or sustainable.
Right.
Um, and I have gone through stages of even if I'm mildly busy, my mind is that like I'm Condoleezza Rice in the 90s and I am like in control and don't come for me, and I have
Hmm.
no time for clients who aren't as I am. And then I have these other times where I'm like,
Yes.
come along, give it a go, do a pelvic curl, try the 100.
Yes.
So no fixed
Right.
address, no fixed. But yeah, I try to keep it as brief as possible and say, because no matter what you say, people come
Uh,
in like, wow, this place is kinky, or this place is freaky.
yes.
Oh, okay,
Right.
well, if you say that this looks like S&M, I know that you haven't been in a real dominatrix bondage chamber. So,
Right.
um, cool.
Come in. Yes. Just have a seat anyway. Yes.
Yeah. Sanitize your hands, have a
Yes.
seat.
Yes. Yeah. The it's so funny that you say that, eh? Because like when you think about, I'm sorry, I'm still laughing at no fixed address because like we do float around those things a lot, right? Because you open by saying there's like you're not an evangelist for, right? But then there's people who are so excited about this work because they've just discovered it and it just changed their life and they want it. I feel like to some degree I am an evangelist with this because I know that there's so many men in my culture here that think that this is just for women and that like
Yeah,
all they need to do is squats and deadlifts and they don't recognize the fact that they need whatever it is, right? So I unapologetically become an evangelist for a society that doesn't understand that there has some value
yeah.
in Pilates, right? So um
Are you an
because
advocate or an evangelist?
yes. Because I would say an advocate, absolutely, right? Like, I mean, I see it, I support it, I
Yeah,
amplify all those different things. But then I also look at people that are in one way of training, and I look at Pilates as a piece of the larger puzzle of fitness and movement and stuff, as we said before. So if
absolutely.
people have tried different, people have tried different modalities, I'm like, Pilates might be your missing link. And that's the moment at which I become an evangelist because they understand movement already, but they haven't recognized that this might be the thing they need.
I love that. My aim is for the clients to become, I don't want to say evangelical because I don't want to use that loaded word, but I want the clients to become their own
Yes, yes.
advocate. And I am really okay with people floating in and out of the studio. Like, we know you want benefits, you need to train 3+ times a week, rain, hail, snow,
Yes.
shine, whatever. But I know realistically in where my studio is situated and the client demography that that's not possible for people all the time or at all ever. So I have people who come in infrequently. They might buy a 5 pass because I don't do casual sessions. and they might use one or
Hmm.
two. And I've known them for 3 or 4 years in this studio, and they just kind of
Yes.
come in and come out, and they have, I hope they have a good enough time, but they don't really engage in the culture. I have a handful of those people,
Yes.
but I still email them
Hmm.
every few weeks. Then I have some people
Yeah.
who are listening now who have a private and 4 group classes a week. It's all
Right.
different
Yeah.
levels. And I just, when I reopened, because I sold my previous business because I was working as a strength and conditioning coach and Pilates teacher for 4 years
Hmm.
for our national ballet school. And I was burnt out as a Pilates studio owner. Um, but then
Okay.
the strength and conditioning role changed, and I had a lot of a lot of changes in my personal life. And I was dreaming with my friend one day. We were watching Flume, the DJ, and we were saying, oh, where do
Okay.
we go for Pilates? And then came this like, oh, does the movement refinery need to come back, and what's going on? So I
Yes.
hope that the space and the method and the feelings are the transformative factors, because the
Yes.
first year that I reopened the space, I was a bit too, oh, you're a Pilates teacher. Oh, you've done this before. Well, have you
Hmm.
done it here? And it didn't work. And it's not to say that I was looking at
Okay.
KPIs and numbers and attendance. It didn't fit me. Um, it didn't suit everyone who came in. And I just became more kind
Yes.
of okay with what I do and what I am isn't for everyone. And I don't have to try
Mm.
and transform other people. They'll come, if they want to come, they'll come when they want on their terms. And then
Yes.
I have all these other barriers like you have to come at this time, you have to pay this much, you can't have zippers on your clothes.
Mm.
So there are barriers that
Yes.
we recognize, and then there are the other things. And so no matter of me being pushy at a cocktail party is going to make someone come if they don't want to. And
Right.
probably last year I became okay with my business being small, not always pushing
Mm.
for new clients, not trying new things all the time. So that's my
Yes.
greatest probably pursuit, is just trying to hang back, because I'm naturally like on the front foot, trying to do things, trying to create things, trying to make space for people. So
Right. Yes. So then where is it right now? Like you're saying, you want to be just a place where people can come and find community, whether community means they show up once every 6 weeks or they show up 5 times a week. This is just their third home sort of thing after home and work.
yeah, it is for some people, and that's the reason why I wake up at 4:30 a.m. 3 or 4 times a week, so that some of my clients,
Mhm.
look, I don't want to get up at that time. Um, he doesn't want to get up at that time, but I know that
Oh,
it's the difference between one of my clients who's a surgeon or someone who is raising 3 kids. Getting up at that time enables them to do something for themselves, and that motivates me to
yes.
kind of wipe the sleep from my eyes and rock up more than
Yes.
the Pilates does. So I think where it's
Right.
going is that it, as a space, is a place for people. I mean, it sounds stupid, but it's a place for people, and it's there to
Yeah.
support them.
That's
And
legit.
that's
Yeah.
kind of it. I like when I was I certainly don't want to complain about my COVID experience, because I know that there are people who are still in lockdown and haven't left lockdown. Our situation in my home state here is that we had an 8 month um, there were 8 months last year where we weren't working. We came
Yes.
up for air for two or 3 weeks, and then we went into
Yes.
closure again.
Mhm.
And so I was on Zoom for a very long time, and also running a teacher training program and trying to keep people interested. I did
Yes.
lots of other things too, which is not the point, but we then got out. We reopened TMR after 8 and a bit months. Um, we were dated by all these new people who would just normally start Pilates through the year, but there was this one date, November 9, I've been waiting, and they came at us hard and fast, and like two have stayed. Um, and
Yes.
that's the way the world works. So
Yep.
through that process and I then went away to teach for a few days in Brisbane to one of my training participants. And my partner and I went there because it was deemed safe. And when we were there, we got forced into a lockdown and mandatory testing. And our 5 day holiday became 3 weeks in a hotel.
Right.
It was not pleasant. Um,
Yes.
and then I've come back and I've been able to see and work with my beloved clients again. And granted, I drive them crazy and they probably frustrate me occasionally, but where TMR has gone is because of this enormous period of time away.
Hmm.
I see it more as a space, as its power is as a space, be
Yes.
it for the clients, be it for me to be creative, or for people, teachers like Lucia to come in for a seasonal engagement, dazzle us, and exit
Yes.
stage left.
Right.
Um, it's kind of a
Beautiful.
meeting place.
Eh,
That's where I see it, and that's what COVID did for me.
That's that's beautiful. And as two comments came straight through and said, not stupid at all. It doesn't sound stupid. That's beautiful. We talk about holding space all the time. You're holding space for people. You're making that a safe place for people.
Hmm.
And and in turn, like you said, it becomes a brave space. People can now explore movement. They can now find the bravery they need within themselves to take time for themselves, like you said, or to make sure that they can have 1 hour of the week that is their time because their kids demand and this demands and that demands. So you're creating a safe space for all that. That's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Thanks.
You're doing good work. Real talk, Nicholas. When you were saying burnout, can you paint a picture of what your burnout looked like for those Pilates people out there that
My,
have been there, feel like they've been there, sort of thing? Because everyone experienced that in different ways. So what did that look like for you, and how did you get through that?
by selling business. Um,
Yes, just running away.
yeah. Well, no, it was a planned response. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, from the top, it was a planned response, but it took me, since I've discovered many other ways of dealing with burnout and being proactive about mental health. But this was the end of 2014, and what I recognized, um, I think I'd probably reached a ceiling. Um, Hey Jackson, I'm seeing one of my former students from the ballet who is now a professional dancer and a
Amazing.
beautiful mover, Jackson Fish. But I think what I saw was at the time I'd reached this point where I'd maximized the challenge and the demand, and the monotony had just like
Yes.
gutted me. And I
Yes.
also at that time I had just finished a 4 year tertiary degree in exercise and sports science. So I hadn't been sitting on my thumbs, but I had started to see personally that the contemporary variants of the Pilates method weren't cutting it for my clients, and I was a little bit
Yes.
lost professionally, and I kind of hit this wave of up and down of depression and anxiety, but very low grade, so not really discernible. And I had developed a
Hmm.
large number of fantastic healthy and non-healthy coping mechanisms. So I was able just to kind of paddle through the monotony of the schedule.
Just
Um,
cope through it. Yes.
yeah, distance running, dance classes, going to the theatre, all sorts of healthy types of things, but then also perhaps, unhealthy coping mechanisms like denial or being, um, Brene Brown said something in a podcast and I thought, ooh, that hit deep. Um, Unhealthy peace,
Yes.
like being soaked in unhealthy peace because
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
love conflict. Um, I mean, who thrives on it? But yeah, so that was when I was younger, and now I see a whole other kind of way of dealing with it. But burnout for me is difficult because you asked me, what's in my life outside of Pilates. But unfortunately, Pilates has crept into every bloody corner of my life,
Yes.
and my house.
Yeah. Uh,
And I'm okay with that now.
right. Yes.
Um, you talked previously about mentors, looking up, linking with, working with people up. Um, and that's
Yes.
also my life. I have um, I developed in 2016. I tried to not fill a gap, but put something out there for the community called the Pilates Teacher Network, which is a Facebook forum. And
Okay.
it's, but that's another story. And through that, I get to commune with a lot of people and we kind of lift each other up. And
Great.
that
Yeah.
has helped with burnout. But hobbies outside, like, well, I don't know that I count my dog as a hobby, but being with Dexter and exploring the outdoors and having someone else to look after, and photography and going to the theatre or watching things on YouTube, they've all helped me avoid burnout. But burnout for me is that point where you are pushing hard and fast, and the monotony is just the constant, as opposed to rusting out,
Yes.
which is where you kind of physically, and you're like a lifer. Um, and for someone
Yes.
who's a mover, um, burnout is, it's like just here all the time. So,
Yes. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well,
how's that long
also,
answer?
not only is it that's, that's exactly it. But I ask those questions that require those long answers because, like, what you see, Esprit Pilates Louisiana is like can relate 2009. You're not the only person who's gone through that. We normalize the situation when we talk about it, right? Like there's so much power when we share those stories, but we want to be like, look at my beautiful space. I just made it here. And no one wants to hear the, oh, I've been bankrupt twice and that's why I have this space now story, right? Like they want to just hear the glorious story at the end of it.
Yeah, someone came to a workshop at my studio and walked in and said, I was prepared to hate you for how nice your studio was. It's like, please leave. And also, this space happened because I made a great real estate investment and my partner and I divorced. And so
Yeah,
this is proceeds of sadness. This is my space. Um,
right,
yeah,
right.
you don't know what's behind it, and it could be great, could not be, but mm,
That's man, like, thanks for sharing that. I mean, because we think about your body, like think about your physique, right? Like, there's a time when I was like, I've always been in shape, but there was a time when I was going through my divorce. Can you still hear me if I'm talking while you're?
yeah, just putting the aircon on for my dog.
There you go.
Yeah, all good.
Yeah. And the thing that I weighed myself one time when I was working at this big box gym and I was like 7% body fat. I was going through a divorce, and I was just working like just a beast, just bell to bell because I just loved my clients. I loved what I was doing. It just gave me energy. I didn't want to go home anyways. So then you'd look at me and be like, how do I look like you? It's like, well, you hate your life, you get yourself a divorce, and you work and live off of coffee. How does that sound, right? Like, you don't want to, people don't want to hear that side of the story. They just want to get what you have.
Yeah. Oh, that's tough. Two things, something you just said is a big thing. So I've diagnosed myself as a low-key workaholic, and I'm cool with it
Okay.
because I love the people I work with. I'm selective at who I
Yes.
work with in a way, and I love what I do. And
Yes.
You know, what I do is both passion, commerce, hobby, restorative, challenging, and it's a lot of things. So it is
Yes.
hard when you're like, okay, well, I'm 9 espressos into this day, and I have seen 10 people run a mentorship program for 2 hours that was for free because I love it. I've got to clean the toilets.
Yes.
I've managed to walk the dog 3 times. There is no way I'm doing anything for myself today aside from
Right.
this. The other thing that I wanted to bring up when I said can relate to that, it is really hard when you love what you do and you love the people. Not to say that you always love everyone and, you know, dot, 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 but
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
hard when you love what you do to accept that, um, like this can happen to you, that you
Yes.
can burn out. And also, one of the reasons why I find in the industry that we burn out is because I'm not sure of in your region, but a lot of instructors in Australia work as independent contractors and they're paid a
Yes.
slightly higher hourly rate. But what they don't do is then say that higher rate means that I need to be putting that into my retirement plan, my financial planning,
Hmm.
and I have to allocate
Right.
4 plus weeks of annual leave to recover. So we rarely take holidays.
Right.
Whereas if you're an employee in
Yes.
a regular organization, in Australia,
Yes.
of course, it's different all over the world, but you get at least 10 sick days. You have 4 weeks of annual leave, which rolls over from year to year. 4 weeks is huge compared to some places in North America. And you also
Yes.
accrue long
Absolutely.
service leave. So for every 9 and a bit years, you get 2 months off paid. But when you're looking at a Pilates, and yeah, come to Australia, it's lovely.
It sounds
um,
lovely. Yes.
but when you have maybe, yeah, when you have someone like me who's worked in the industry for next year's my 20th year teaching, I haven't had any long service leave.
Thanks, Daniel.
Not in 1 year have I had
Wow. Yeah.
4 weeks of annual leave, or more than
Right.
2 weeks consecutively. So even though I love my job, I love my people, I love walking my dog, I love my boyfriend, da, 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 I'm never going to get to unplug. So you are
Unless.
like, there's no way burnout's not going to be there several times in your career.
Right.
Because other
Right.
professions, they get to do things differently.
Right. Well, that speaks to two things. One, this conversation isn't happening enough in the Pilates industry for people to be proactive. And
Uh-huh.
two, we're just not, and the other part is that we just don't take initiative for ourselves, right? Because
There are a
the
lot of
world will
victims and
go
martyrs in
on
our
if
industry.
we thank you. That's exactly it. Like the world will go on if I don't see my client this week. If I choose to take a long weekend, it will.
I just got slapped
Like,
on the wrist
you
by a
know,
client for saying something. So we have in Australia, we have a lot of travel restrictions. Like Australia is, you know, an enormous land size, eight from each other at least. And every state and territory has handled COVID and restrictions differently. And some have said
wow.
no travel, hard border, lockdown to everyone. You know, you must show that there's no community transmissions for 28 days or more, and then we will consider pulling the border down.
Hmm.
Others have said, you can come, but you have
Yes.
to quarantine for 2 weeks, and then you have to be subject to other measures. So there has not been free travel within Australia since March last year, which obviously
Wow.
we're dealing with bigger bad problems. But when we're trying to travel so I can mentor and run my teacher training program interstate, things get difficult. And I just got stuck in
Of course.
Brisbane for
Yes.
that 3 week lockdown. And I'm due to start a new teacher training group in Sydney next week. And I said, um, Melbourne, we just had this 5 days lockdown. was saying to my 6 in the morning, oh, I'm a little bit nervous about going because if something happens and I get locked down, I think my clients will kill me because, I'm so important. I have to come back. I have to give you a Pilates session. And one of them in
Yeah,
particular was like,
right, yeah.
we're not going to kill you, you idiot. Like, we understand. So
Right.
even through all I've been through, I'm like, I have to be here. I have to deliver 8 classes, 16 privates, 4 mentoring sessions. It's not really true, is it?
It's not. It really
No.
isn't. Yeah, you're right. We want to be martyrs, right? We so want to be that martyr. We think that we're that important. Yeah, it's too funny.
Hard though, because you said something that
Can you hear me there?
there are not.
It froze. Yeah.
Here we go. I think we're good again. Um, you said before,
Yes,
like
go for it.
there are not a lot of people to look up to. I find that although there are obviously fantastic fantastic teachers, the big name teachers. If you look at kind of that level, or if you look at the
Yes.
suburban level, I mean, like I was saying earlier, we are spoilt for choice in Melbourne. Like there are so many fantastic quality teachers. But
Mhm.
taking the craft of the method out of it, I don't have a lot of people that I can look up to for community role models or commercial role models who have been in the game for a long time. There's not a lot of
Yes.
representation. Um, so it's easy to kind of put the bubble around and become the victim and say, I don't deserve, I can't afford
Woe is
it,
me.
the clients will leave me.
Yes.
Oh, I love my job. Everything's fine. I've got blue upholstery or, whatever. So I think that from like an industrial relations point of view and a community point of view, it isn't easy
Yes.
to not fall into that channel either.
That just reminded me, and this is not to sound like, pat myself on the back, but over this weekend, I actually took 2 days off, right? So we have Valentine's Day on the Sunday, and then we have Family Day on the Monday. So
Oh,
from Saturday night, I just basically shut my phone off, spent the Sunday with the wife, and did our Valentine's Day stuff. And then on the Monday, we have usually this long weekend, they do the car show in Toronto, but because of COVID, it's closed down. So they didn't have it. But my son still wanted to go downtown. So we did Toronto for the day and all this fun stuff. So that was 40 hours. I've done this in the past where I just lock off, like go completely dark for like 40 hours, no social media, nothing, and just be present. So Tuesday or late Monday night, when I said this is where I was, I didn't even tell anyone I did anything. Then that's when I got the good for you, well done, so glad you got some time to take a break. And you're getting these pats on the back for taking 40 hours off, like that's an anomaly. So, I mean, as much as I appreciate people, wanting my best wishes, well wishes for me and stuff, I thought that it was weird that I was like a hero for taking time off.
you deserve it.
Is that odd?
So
Or
odd.
do we deserve it? Or isn't it supposed to be just what we do? That should be part of the cadence of our quarter.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I think it's gross. I think, look, I know you're interviewing me. We're having a conversation rather on social media, but this is the problem.
Yes,
This is a large part of the problem
it can be.
because, Ru- yeah, because RuPaul says happiness is an inside job, but it is pretty
Yes,
hard to listen to an inside voice when you have shit firing all around you from all countries in the world and all time zones. Um, I
right.
think I've there's a colleague who does this thing which I thought, oh, that's ridiculous, but now I understand it. So praise to you, Kirsty. On Friday at a certain time, all social media apps are deleted from her phone, and she reinstalls them on Monday.
Oh,
So I've been doing that.
what?
So I've left IG on for you, mate. Um, and
Oh, that.
I'm 3 weeks in. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
but that was really interesting and right, Luch. And so that got me thinking a lot because I've been in the quest of having a dumb phone for years, but I always say, oh, I can't because of the business or the blah blah, or there's always an excuse.
Yes.
But you always think about how the generations change and how technology is forced upon us. We're in this situation at the moment
Right.
where Facebook is under huge scrutiny because they've blocked Australia, the Australian government and Facebook are at loggerheads, as we are with Google. And Facebook have pulled the ability for any news or journalistic publishing organization to post to Facebook. So
Oh,
all of our news channels are now blocked, ostensibly.
oh,
And now we have to think. I heard on the radio, because I listened to the radio, someone saying, oh, it's so inconvenient. Now I have to go to their own websites to find the news. How busy are you that you can't look at five different, we've come into this world of
right.
autopilot and being assaulted by everything. So I think my colleague's right. If you don't take
Yes.
a break or have very clear boundaries and be cool with missing out, I think
Right.
you have to be that explicit. Like we don't always have to comment, we don't have to
Absolutely.
post, we don't have to blah. We have lubricated it in, and we're cool with it, and now we're complaining about it. So,
Yes.
like, hey guys, I sneezed. Post. No one cares. Here I am
Right.
looking so relaxed. You know. Oh, no thanks.
Right.
I would get rid of I would get rid of it altogether if I could, but I do love the connections that we can make. Um, and there are so many great things
Yes.
to come out of it. And I am going to take some time to try and work out what sits well with me, where I don't feel like I have to make these types of posts for the polite
But
method,
that's
for the
that
business, and for myself.
right. Yes, no, exactly. And that's kind of my takeaway from this is there's a sense of living with intentionality that we need to bring to everything as opposed to just being on autopilot and letting life happen to us,
Yeah.
right? So like the social media is one of those things where it can happen to us and we get bombarded by all these things and we just respond, or we can go at it with intentionality because in and of itself it's not a bad thing. It's like
Mm,
saying money is evil. No, it's the love of money that is the root of evil, right? Like the money is not the thing. The social media is not the thing. It's how we use that currency that can be used for evil, that can be used for distraction, that can be used for X, Y, and Z, right? So we just have to be more purposeful, like our time off. Like when we're intentional and living life on purpose with all of these things, they can all work for us, right?
yeah, absolutely. And again, it's hard to see as exemplars in the industry who's using what and how, because
Right.
prior to social media, there were blogs, there were newsletters. We would go to conferences,
Right.
like we would fly to the States to go to a conference, shall we say, and that's where we would
Right.
meet a Kathy Ross Nash face to face, or that's how we
Yes.
networked. And they were really important, but now conferences aren't that
Yes.
important because
No.
people are broadcasting themselves, or, you know, I don't know, the world's changing. I think there's an enormous shift right now, and it's too easy to be a slave to it.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I'm just reading Marcia's comment here. Mine is now turning D do not disturb on, close my phone, cover certain points at every night when I'm ready. Still in solo isolation, but I'm still shutting out the world when I'm ready to be done. Yeah, exactly. That's the sense of just having some discipline with it and choosing what you let in and what and yes, I got it. Poor
Yeah.
sentence structure. We
And
call
it
it.
doesn't matter if you're in solo isolation or in a commune, you still
Yes.
have the same control over it.
Yes. Yes.
Can I
Yes.
just say that I think my mum just joined this
Nicholas.
chat? Hi, mum.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Amazing. Yes, yes. So we just burned over an hour talking here, and I really appreciate you keeping your phone on enough to do this conversation. And like, it was totally worth it. It was totally worth it for me to come back to work at 7 o'clock at night to do this because I
Thank you, sir.
this is like is
I'm
so
sorry to
good.
your family.
Um,
Thank you.
no, it's like they get it. This is what we do. And yeah, so at one point I'll make my way to Australia. I have plenty of people to visit, and I'm grateful for
Absolutely.
when we can use, when we can use it like media like this to connect and just highlight, heroes like yourself out there doing great work and making a safe space for people.
I
Hey,
think it's
you are.
important. I think spaces are important and representation is important. And as we're all learning new ways to care for other people in the community, it's great that we can do that with Pilates and with Pilates studios. I think I've always been a champion for Pilates studios being a real hub in every suburb
Yes.
where people can, like-minded people can, obviously they're paying to come. It's different to a community hub, but they are sharing their experiences, they're communing with people that they might have not met before, and it's a two-way street. So I've
Yes.
learned so much from my clients and community over the year, and I love waking up at the crack of before dawn to work with them.
Yes. Keep doing great work. Keep building your community. I really appreciate it, Nicholas. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on. Have a lovely night.
Likewise. All right. Signing off.